There are shows you watch, and then there are shows you grew up with, ones that felt almost rebellious just for existing. Married with Children was one of those. And after all these years, it turns out there are still things hiding in plain sight. Here are 30 small details you missed in Married with Children.
I want to have some friends.
Wait a second, wait. Are you implying that it's my fault you have no friends?
Oh.
Detail 30, the show almost had a very different name. Before a single episode aired, Married with Children was called something else entirely. The working title was Not the Cosbys, a direct, almost confrontational jab at the squeaky clean family sitcoms that dominated primetime television in the mid-1980s. The Cosby Show had been the top-rated program in America for most of the decade, and the networks had responded by filling their schedules with warm, conflict-free family programming. Creators Ron Levitt and Michael G. Moy had something entirely different in mind. Fox executives told them to be as outrageous as they possibly could, to do the kind of material ABC, NBC, and CBS would never in a million years permit. Both men took that instruction at face value. The title, Not the Cosbys, made the intention almost comically clear, which was presumably exactly the point. Thankfully, someone in the room recognized that leading with a direct provocation of another show's creators wasn't the strongest long-term strategy, and a different name was chosen before it ever reached a press release.
Oh, I missed you so much.
Detail 29. Kelly and Bud were completely different people. Most people don't know there is an unaired version of the pilot with entirely different actors playing Kelly and Bud Bundy. The original pilot was taped on December 12, 1986, with Tina Caspary as Kelly and Hunter Carson as Bud. The producers were unhappy with the chemistry, and Ed O'Neill personally lobbied for a recast. Every scene featuring the original Bundy kids had to be reshot from scratch before the show ever reached an audience. Caspary went on to appear in Can't Buy Me Love and Mac and Me before leaving acting entirely. Carson later returned to the industry as a writer and director.
You're looking handsome today, Al.
Detail 28. The theme song is older than most of the cast. When you hear that opening, it's easy to assume it was written for the show. It wasn't. Love and Marriage was written by Sammy Cahn and Jimmy Van Heusen in 1955, specifically for a live television production of Thornton Wilder's play Our Town, which starred Frank Sinatra as the stage manager, along with Paul Newman and Eva Marie Saint. Sinatra's Capitol Records recording from August 15, 1955, peaked at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and won an Emmy for Best Musical Contribution in 1956. 30 years later, the producers of a brand new Fox show decided it was the perfect ironic backdrop for the Bundy household.
Thank you, girls. Thank you. Whoa. Hey, I told you boys in janitorial.
Detail 27, the theme song vanished from the DVDs. Here's one that frustrated a lot of fans over the years. When Sony Pictures released the show's DVD box sets, they were unable to obtain the licensing rights to Sinatra's Love and Marriage for Season 3 onward. The opening theme was quietly replaced with a generic instrumental piece across those releases. The credits on some discs still listed the original song by name, despite it not being there. It wasn't until 2013, when Mill Creek Entertainment acquired the home media rights, that the original Sinatra recording was properly restored across the full run.
I know.
I can't believe you let your husband watch this.
Detail 26, the first Fox primetime show ever. Married with Children holds a distinction that has nothing to do with the Bundy family and everything to do with television history. When it debuted on April 5th, 1987, it was the very first primetime scripted program to air on the Fox Broadcasting Company. Fox had launched in late 1986 with a late-night talk show starring Joan Rivers, but that show struggled and Rivers departed by May 1987. Married with Children was the show that actually opened the primetime door. Every Fox primetime show that followed, The Simpsons, Beverly Hills, 90210, The X-Files, came after the Bundys. Katie Sagal later said she always felt the show never fully got the credit it deserved from Fox for helping build the network from the ground up.
Thanks, Al. I can take it from here.
Peg, I told you.
Detail 25. The house in the opening credits isn't in Chicago. The show is set in Chicago. The aerial shots in the opening credits are genuinely from Chicago. Buckingham Fountain in Grant Park, the Lakeshore Drive corridor, the downtown skyline at dusk. But the exterior shot of the Bundy house? That was filmed in a subdivision in Deerfield, Illinois, which sits about 25 miles north of the city. The actual address used for the Bundy family throughout the show's run was 9764 Jeopardy Lane in the fictional suburb of Jefferson, and the Deerfield house stood in as the exterior whenever the outside was shown. Sharp-eyed Chicago area viewers who knew the northern suburbs always noticed the mismatch immediately. The neighborhood looked nothing like the working-class South Side setting the show described. Most of America, of course, had no idea, and the house became iconic entirely on its own terms, regardless of its real location.
Borrow a cup of kibble. We ran out. The dog's still hungry.
Detail 24. One shot in the opening credits came from a movie. Look carefully at the expressway scene in the opening credits. That shot of a car entering the highway with a view of the interchange was not filmed for the show. It was lifted directly from the 1983 film National Lampoon's Vacation. The distinctive green Griswold family truckster is visible in the frame if you know exactly where to look. Nobody involved with the show ever made a public statement about why the shot was borrowed rather than filmed fresh. The most likely explanation is simple budget economy during the show's early, low-cost production days. It was a good shot of Chicago area highway infrastructure, and it was available. Whatever the reason, it stayed in the opening credits for the entire 11-season run without anyone at the network apparently raising an objection. Fans who noticed it over the years tended to treat it as a private joke rather than a mistake, which, depending on your perspective, it might well have been.
No, it's mine. It's my car. I worked for it. No, you can't take it, please. Ask him. The kid don't even want it.
Detail 23. Al's car had over 1 million miles on it. Al Bundy's 1972 Dodge Dart was not just a beat-up old car deployed for visual comedy. The show established within its own fictional world that the vehicle had accumulated more than 1 million miles on the odometer, a number that was referenced multiple times across various episodes and became one of those recurring background details that longtime viewers absorbed without necessarily registering it consciously. The car was as much a character as any of the Bundy's neighbors. It broke down at the worst possible moments. It refused to be replaced. It survived situations that would have destroyed any sensible vehicle. Al's attachment to it was played as a running joke, but it also functioned as a genuine character trait. The car was one of the few things in Al's life that was entirely his, and he was not going to let it go. It outlasted several plot lines, several neighbors, and at least one transatlantic road trip.
Oh, but all this is pie in the sky.
Detail 22. the banned episode that stayed hidden for over a decade. Season 3 of the show contained an episode titled, "I'll See You in Court," and almost nobody in America saw it when it was meant to air. The episode, in which Al and Peggy discovered that the motel they used was filming its guests without their knowledge, was pulled by Fox in 1989 in the middle of the Terry Rakolta controversy. Rather than make the changes the network requested, the creators chose to shelve it entirely. It did not air in the United States until June 18, 2002, on the cable channel FX, more than 12 years after it was originally produced. When it finally aired, viewers who had expected something scandalous were surprised by how relatively tame it turned out to be.
Is she my size?
Detail 21. Terry Rakolta accidentally made the show more famous. In 1989, a Michigan woman named Terry Rakolta launched a letter-writing campaign against the show after watching an episode called "Her Cups Runneth Over with Her Children." She contacted the show's advertisers directly, and several initially pulled their commercials. Her campaign received coverage from ABC News, a write-up in Time magazine, and national attention that lasted for weeks. The unintended consequence was enormous. Millions of Americans who had never heard of Married with Children suddenly tuned in to see what all the fuss was about. Ratings climbed. The show gained a rebel identity that actually helped rather than hurt it. Another episode, The Camping Show, was temporarily pulled around the same period, and the third season episode, I'll See You in Court, was shelved entirely, at least partly because the network was operating in the long shadow of the Rakolta campaign and didn't want to hand her another target.
Oh, when it's cold outside.
Shut up, Peggy.
Detail 20. Sam Kinison and Roseanne Barr were offered the lead roles. Before Ed O'Neill and Katie Sagal were cast, the roles of Al and Peggy Bundy were offered to comedian Sam Kinison and Roseanne Barr, respectively. Both passed. Roseanne Barr was in the early stages of developing her own domestic sitcom at the time, a project that would become Roseanne, premiering on ABC in 1988 and going on to become one of the most watched shows of the late 1980s and early 1990s. The two shows ended up occupying remarkably similar cultural territory from opposite networks, with Roseanne Barr essentially building the version of a working-class American family sitcom that she would have been doing on Fox if she had accepted the original offer. Sam Kinison, for his part, went on to appear on Married with Children in 1989, not as himself, but as Al Bundy's guardian angel in the Season 4 Christmas special, It's a Bundyful Life, a parody of It's a Wonderful Life. He mooned the cast and crew on his first day, later arranged for strippers to serve lunch as an apology, and reportedly threatened the show's director on one occasion. The producers were openly relieved they hadn't agreed to work with him full-time. The irony of the two people who turned down the lead roles, one of whom went on to headline a direct competitor, one of whom came back as a guest and nearly derailed production, was not lost on anyone paying close attention.
He doesn't know that Daddy's upstairs. He's our secret weapon.
Yeah, if he leaves the bathroom door open.
Detail 19. Ed O'Neill appeared in every single episode. Of the main cast, Ed O'Neill is the only actor who appeared in every single episode across all 11 seasons. Every one of the show's 259 broadcast episodes featured Al Bundy on screen, even in seasons when other cast members were absent due to illness, real-life pregnancies, or contractual complications. Amanda Bears, who played Marcy, missed episodes. Katie Sagal missed episodes during Season 6 following her personal tragedy. Even Christina Applegate and David Faustino had occasional absences across the run. O'Neill never did. That kind of consistency across 11 years of television production, week after week, with no gaps, is genuinely unusual. Most shows of similar length have at least one episode where a lead actor is absent for one reason or another. It speaks to both O'Neill's professionalism and to how fundamentally the entire show was built around Al Bundy. The writers simply couldn't construct an episode that didn't have him in it, and apparently never needed to try.
It's great. It tingles. It's just like the commercial says. My whole scalp feels alive.
Detail 18. Peggy's hair was a wig, and that was a sign of success. In the show's early seasons, Katie Sagal styled and maintained her own hair for the role of Peggy Bundy. The signature towering red bouffant was achieved through her own effort before each taping, working with a hairstylist under the constraints of a production budget that was, in the beginning, quite modest. It wasn't until the show started generating real money and real ratings for the network that the production budget expanded enough to cover proper custom wigs. When the wig finally arrived, Sagal later recalled on Jimmy Kimmel Live, she knew the show had genuinely arrived. Not because of the ratings numbers or the audience response, but because the production was now spending money on her hair specifically. In Hollywood, budget allocations have a way of communicating things that nobody says out loud. The wig was the message. From that point on, Peggy's hair became one of the most recognizable silhouettes on American television.
Oh, hi, honey. You want to come and join us? We were talking about breast swell.
Detail 17. The real pregnancy that became a nightmare storyline. During season 6, both Katie Sagal and Amanda Bearse were pregnant in real life, and the writers wrote both of their characters' pregnancies into the show. For Sagal, the storyline ended in devastating real-life tragedy. She lost her baby 6 weeks before her due date. The show was faced with an impossible situation, a pregnancy arc that could no longer have its intended ending. The writers handled it by closing the season with a reveal that Peggy's entire pregnancy had been part of one of Al's nightmares all along, a creative decision that gave the writers a way out while protecting Sagal from having to relive the experience through the character's story. Sagal missed 4 episodes during that season. It remains one of the more quietly heartbreaking production stories in the show's history, and most viewers at the time had no idea what had actually happened behind the scenes.
Their kid! Oh my God! I've got another child!
Detail 16, Seven just disappeared. In season 7, the writers introduced a young child named Seven, played by Shane Sweet, in an attempt to inject new energy into the Bundy household dynamic. The character was a young boy who came to stay with the family, and the decision to add him was a classic television maneuver. When a long-running show starts to feel stale, you add a kid. It almost never works. When audience response made it clear the character wasn't connecting the way the producers had hoped, he was quietly written out of the show without explanation. His last on-screen appearance was in an episode called Peggy and the Pirates, after which the show simply never mentioned him again. No departure scene, no explanation, no acknowledgement. He ceased to exist within the Bundy universe as suddenly and completely as if he had never been there. The closest the series ever came to winking at the situation was a blink and you'll miss it moment in season 8, when a carton of milk appears on screen with Seven's photo beneath the word missing. It was exactly 1 second of television. TV Guide and TV Land later ranked it 73rd on their list of the 100 most unexpected TV moments.
Oh, okay.
Detail 15. Kelly had the first line and the last line. Christina Applegate delivered the very first line of dialogue in the show's first aired episode, which premiered on April 5th, 1987. And in the series finale, the last word spoken before Married with Children closed its 11-year run on June 9th, 1997. It was Kelly Bundy's voice again. The finale episode, titled How to Marry a Moron, was not written or filmed as a planned series conclusion. Fox had canceled the show while it was still in production, and the episode that happened to be the last one in the can became the finale by default rather than design, which makes the symmetry between Kelly's first words and her last even more striking, because it wasn't planned. Nobody sat down and decided to bookend the whole run with Christina Applegate. It simply happened that way. Whether you call it a coincidence or something more poetic is entirely up to you, but it's entirely accurate, and it gives the 11-year run a kind of quiet, unintentional grace note.
Wearing that extra chin very nicely.
Detail 14. The graffiti at the top of the Bundy stairs. David Faustino once mentioned in an interview with People magazine that there was something written on the wall at the top of the Bundy staircase, visible in the background of many scenes, that was not exactly family-friendly. The set's design crew had apparently left something there that remained throughout the production. Because it was slightly out of focus and in the background, it made it through 11 seasons without anyone at the network apparently catching it. Whether viewers at home ever spotted it remains a matter of fan debate.
For less than 1,000. Anyway, I got a part in a TV movie.
Detail 13. Christina Applegate wore a wig in season 10. Kelly Bundy's signature bleached blonde hair was as much a part of the character as the teased volume and the short skirts. So when Christina Applegate dyed her hair dark brown for a film role during season 10, the production had to find a solution. The answer was a blonde wig, which Applegate wore throughout that season's filming. Viewers watching at the time likely never noticed the difference. Looking back at those episodes now, some fans say they can tell, but only just.
Al! Title game of the now defunct World Football League. Travis, excuse me. Do you want...
Detail 12. Al Bundy's name was misspelled constantly on set as a running joke. Throughout the show's 10-year production run, a recurring internal joke among the crew involved misspelling Ed O'Neill's character's name in various ways on call sheets, signs, and production materials. Versions included Alberti, Al Bumby, and Al Bundy, among others. It was one of those low-key running gags that a cast and crew develop over years of working together. The kind of thing that means nothing to an outsider, but becomes a small piece of shared culture for everyone on the inside.
What the hell do you want?
What the hell do you think? It's Halloween. I'm in a costume.
Detail 11. The show ran for 11 seasons. Without a single Emmy win, Married with Children was the longest-running live-action sitcom on Fox. It ran for 11 seasons and 259 episodes. In all that time, despite receiving 7 Emmy nominations and an equal number of Golden Globe nominations over its run, it never won a single Emmy award. The Television Academy, which was handing out statuettes to Cheers, Seinfeld, and Frasier throughout the same era, consistently passed over the Bundy family when it came time to award the hardware. The nominations confirmed that the Academy noticed the show. The consistent losses confirmed that noticing it and rewarding it were two very different things. Entertainment Weekly later named Katie Sagal's performance as Peggy Bundy one of the biggest Emmy snubs in television history. The cast took the oversight personally, and several of them spoke about it publicly over the years. Looking back now, 11 seasons without a single win, for a show that helped launch a broadcast network, survived a national boycott campaign, and ran longer than most of its competition, remains one of the stranger gaps in awards history.
Take it you got me nothing.
Ah, come on, Peg. I knew it was Valentine's Day. I got you something right here.
Detail 10, the Bundy's Dodge was supposed to drive to 1,000,000 miles on screen. In a season 8 plotline, the Dodge Company offered Al the opportunity to receive a brand new Viper in exchange for allowing them to film the moment his beloved Dart crossed the 1,000,000-mile mark on the odometer. The episode played the whole situation for comedy in the way the show always did with Al's dignity, dangling something wonderful in front of him and finding a way to make it complicated. But it also let the show pay genuine tribute to a car that had become a surprisingly iconic piece of the show's visual identity. The Dart had gone from being a throwaway prop detail in the pilot to something the audience actually cared about. The idea that a beat-up vehicle introduced as a visual joke about Al's poverty and failure would eventually become significant enough to anchor an entire episode, and to receive an offer from the actual manufacturer is one of those small, satisfying details that only a show running for as many years as this one could accumulate.
Best cart in the lot. The foodies cart stunk, but I got this baby from a bag lady across the street.
Detail 9. Matt LeBlanc got his career start here. Before Friends, before Joey Tribbiani became one of the most recognized television characters in the world, Matt LeBlanc appeared on Married with Children as Vinny Verducci, one of Kelly's boyfriends and the son of one of Al's friends. The character was written with enough energy and charm that the producers felt he could carry his own show. Top of the Heap, a spin-off built around Vinny, aired 6 episodes on Fox in 1992 before the network declined to continue it. A reworked version, Vinny and Bobby, ran for 7 episodes the same year before that too was canceled. Neither show found an audience, but within a couple of years, LeBlanc had landed the role that would define the rest of his career. And The Bundy Connection, which most Casual Friends fans probably never knew about, is one of those small, satisfying threads that run through 1990s television history.
Care, okay?
Yeah.
Young man, do you have insurance?
Of course not.
Detail 8. David Boreanaz and Corey Feldman both played Kelly's boyfriends. Before Angel, before Bones, before David Boreanaz became one of the more durable leading men in American television drama, he appeared on Married with Children in a small role as one of Kelly's many rotating boyfriends. Corey Feldman, who had been a legitimate film star through the 1980s thanks to The Goonies, Stand By Me, and The Lost Boys, appeared in the same capacity. Neither role was meant to be particularly significant in the moment. They were brief appearances in broad comedy scenes, the kind of guest spots that television used to generate regularly. But in retrospect, the parade of names that passed through the Bundy house on their way to bigger things is one of the more interesting artifacts of just how long the show was on the air and how much of the entertainment industry flowed through it.
It's a great rail. You know, many's the time I need a rail to help me get up.
Detail 7. Who's the Boss was filmed right next door. David Faustino, Bud Bundy, has spoken more than once about the layout of the studio lots where Married with Children was filmed during its early seasons. Who's the Boss? The ABC sitcom starring Tony Danza and Alyssa Milano was shot on an adjacent soundstage at the same facility. The two productions overlapped for a significant portion of the late 1980s and early 1990s. Faustino was a teenager during much of the show's early run. He was only 12 years old when filming began, and openly admitted in interviews that he had a significant crush on Alyssa Milano, who was roughly his age and filming just a short walk away. He also admitted, with the kind of self-deprecating honesty that tends to come with hindsight, that he was too nervous to do anything about it. The image of two of the most watched young actors on American television crossing paths in a studio parking lot, and one of them being too shy to say hello, is somehow exactly the kind of detail that makes all of this feel like a long time ago.
I didn't even have time to learn how to speak Canadian.
Oh. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Detail 6. Ed O'Neill found out the show was canceled while on vacation. The cancellation of Married with Children in April 1997 was not handled with much grace. Fox made the decision while the cast and crew were still actively filming the final season, and the announcement went public before most of the people who worked on the show had been told. Ed O'Neill was on vacation when two people at a nearby table started talking about a newspaper article reporting the show's end. He overheard the conversation, confirmed it was real, and, in a moment that has become something of a legend in the show's history, bought the couple a meal to thank them for the information before going to find a phone. David Faustino later described the cancellation as a hard, cold business decision made without any ceremony. The cast had not been given closure, the final episode was not written as a finale, and the show simply stopped. For a series that had given Fox its primetime identity for a decade, it was a remarkably unceremonious ending.
I don't know, how about this tall?
Oh, I see. Don't be embarrassed. We often cater.
Detail 5. The show was the first to draw a quarter of Fox's total viewership. During its third season, the same season that saw the Terry Rakolta controversy push it into national headlines, Married with Children became the first program in Fox's short history to attract a full quarter of the network's total viewership in a single broadcast. For context, Fox in 1989 was still a network that most industry insiders treated as a footnote. The three major broadcast networks, ABC, NBC, and CBS, had dominated American television for decades, and the idea that a fourth player could carve out a meaningful share of the audience was not something the establishment took particularly seriously. The Bundy family helped change that calculation, at a moment when Fox most needed proof that it could deliver audiences at scale. Married with Children delivered. The controversy that Rakolta had intended to harm the show had, perversely, transformed it into exactly the kind of cultural event that brings viewers to their televisions out of curiosity rather than habit.
Al, you have rented that 25 times already.
It's good.
Detail 4. The show did a self-referential jab at itself in the video store scene. In a Season 3 episode, Al and Peg visit a video rental store. In the background, eagle-eyed viewers can spot the store running a promotion for the film Dutch, a 1991 comedy that starred Ed O'Neill himself. The prop department, apparently, had a sense of humor. It is the kind of background detail that rewards close attention and says a great deal about the playfulness of a crew that had been together long enough to start hiding jokes inside jokes.
Call for strong but yielding hands. The
I
coach
don't want to hear about football. Tell me something exciting.
Detail 3. A real creator connection appeared on screen as a character. Series co-creator Ron Levitt invited Jessica Hahn, a woman who had become nationally known through her involvement in the Jim Bakker scandal, to appear on the show in 1991. She played Ricky the Shoe Groupie in Season 6, Episode 12, So This Is How Sinatra Felt, a woman who comes into Gary's shoes and becomes infatuated with Al, much to Peggy's suspicion. After filming, Levitt asked Hahn to coffee, and the two began a long-term relationship that lasted until his death from lung cancer in February 2008. At the time of his death, they were engaged. After a period of personal difficulty that followed his passing, Hahn later married actor and stunt coordinator Frank Lloyd, who had a recurring role on the show as Al's friend Norris in 2009.
Rich.
So, wine is free, eh? The working man...
Detail 2. The show inspired international versions in Russia and Turkey. Long before American television formats routinely sold themselves overseas as package franchises, Married with Children spawned full localized remakes in multiple countries. In Russia, the show became Счастливы вместе, which translates to happy together, with Russian characters, Russian settings, and a Russian family living out the Bundy household dynamic in their own cultural context. It ran for well over a decade and became one of the most successful locally produced sitcoms in Russian television history, outlasting the original American version by a considerable margin. A Turkish version, called Evli ve Çocuklu, aired in 2004. Both productions recreated the essential formula: the tired, defeated patriarch, the cheerfully indifferent wife, the scheming neighbors, the chaotic children, while adapting the specifics to fit their own audiences. The fact that a show built on very particular American working-class anxieties and 1980s suburban culture translated so effectively into entirely different societies says something interesting about what the show was actually about underneath all the jokes. Some frustrations, apparently, are universal.
Yeah, but this time we're not dressed like Hare Krishnas begging for spare change.
Detail 1. The airport Easter egg that only the crew would know. In the season 6 episode where the Bundys travel to England, there is a scene at the airport where Kelly points out a man holding a sign reading Bundy. In the background, slightly out of focus, 2 other men can be seen holding signs of their own. Those signs bear the names of the show's creators, a hidden tribute inserted by the production team that nobody in the viewing audience was ever meant to catch on the first pass. It takes a paused frame, a little patience, and the knowledge of what you're looking for. It was put there by a crew that had been working together long enough to start communicating in the margins of their own show, leaving small private signatures in the corners of scenes that millions of people would watch without ever knowing they were there. That's the thing about a show that ran for 11 years. The people who made it had time. They knew every corner of every set. They had inside jokes that nobody outside the production would ever fully understand. And every now and then, they put one of those jokes somewhere that a careful viewer, rewatching decades later, might finally find. That's what makes going back to Married with Children still worthwhile. Not just the broad comedy, but the quiet details that were always there, hiding in plain sight, just waiting. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on more history documentaries.